It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 31, looking at the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Burkina Faso. Part 1, the candidates. Here we go! Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 31 on the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode covers Burkina Faso's players. Just a note on where we're at in our media casts. We're publishing previews of the groups and teams of the 2025 African Cup at the same time as this series on the players. Last summer, we previewed the groups and teams and players for the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. We also did a media cast introducing ourselves over the summer. And then after this African Cup, we will tackle the massive 48-team World Cup in the summer of 2026. So we plan to start publishing episodes on that in the springtime of 2026. We're doing this media cast in two parts. Part 1 here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We examine the participation of players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors, and we categorize them into definite, likely, possible but unlikely, and seemingly off the squad. And we'll go into more detail on the career biographies of the players we think likely to reach the final squad, and less, perhaps even just the names of the players unlikely to get there. Part 2 will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad selected. That'll probably be in mid-December, not long from now. At that time, we'll go back over the list that we create here today and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover things like injuries and surprise selections in Part 2. Let's take a look at the breakdown of Part 1 here. So this episode has 3 sections. In Section 1, we're going to look at some general information on the team. And in Section 2 is the main part. That's where we look at the candidates, consider their likelihood of selection, and give some biographical information or career information on the players. And then in Section 3, that's where we summarize and conclude, especially focusing on things like injuries to keep an eye on. All right, let's begin then. And Section 1, some team information here. So let's look at club affiliations, just to get a general idea for Burkina Faso here. So domestic league or similar level is about 10% of the players. They have a couple of players in Sudan and in Ivory Coast and Rwanda, which are relatively similar size leagues, as well as I think it's just one player actually playing in Burkina Faso. And next we have slightly bigger leagues in Africa and Asia, and that makes up about 15%, and that includes Morocco, Egypt, Algeria, and then in the Asian Confederation, Qatar. Outside of Europe, they have a couple of players playing in the USA there. Sorry, I'm just getting my graphics together. That makes up about 5% there. Small to mid-sized clubs in Europe, about 15%. That would be places like Latvia, Moldova, Armenia, and a smaller club in Scotland. We're breaking this down more than usual. I'll just say that they have about 10% of their players playing in France and about 10% of their players playing in Europe. So in France, Lorient, Angers, and Lens. And in England, Sunderland and Belgium are representative. And then, so overall, I should call that mid to top clubs in Europe, about 25%. And then the biggest of those clubs would be Manchester United. There's a player, I think it's Manchester City, actually. a player with Manchester City, but actually on loan to Wrexham. That is the club where an interesting documentary is being made on their progress. So let me see, what does that add up to? I think I included a couple of things. So I would say actually about 45% in those mid to top clubs. This becomes more interesting actually when compared with the other teams in the group. So overall, I would say Burkina Faso is fairly well represented at the club level compared to other teams in the group. I wouldn't say as high as Algeria, maybe just a cut below Algeria there. Okay, let's take a look at the recent games that we'll be looking at in the build-up to the Cup. We're actually going to start our narratives with the 2023 African Cup. That took place in January of 2024, but those games are not included in the participation count. So the participation is kind of measured from after the African Cup there, from the beginning of, or so for March 2024 up until October of 2025. Anyway, I will mention that they played 4 games in that 2023 African Cup in January of 2024. Then we have 2 friendlies in March of 2024. We have a change after that. We have a manager, well, let's just say there's a new manager. Old manager out, new manager in. And he took them through the rest of the games. That began with World Cup qualifying matches in June of 2024, 2 of them. And then in the fall of 2024, we get all 6 qualification games for this Cup. So September, October, November, 2 games each, 6 games, and obviously they qualified because we're talking about them here. In January of 2024, they actually had 4 friendlies, but we're only going to count 2 of them. 2 of them seem, well, we don't really even have good information on those, so we find it unreliable to put into our measuring data. So we'll go with 2 friendlies in, actually I'm thinking we're not even counting any of those friendlies in January of 2024. So I'm going to put it in gray here. Nevertheless, they did play 4 friendlies, and it wasn't necessarily their A players. That's part of the reason we don't count it. However, 2 World Cup qualifying games in March of 2024, and then 2 friendlies in June of 2024. Generally, the A-team players did show up for that one. And we end with 4 World Cup qualifying matches to round out qualification for that competition in September and October 2024. 2025. Good heavens. Okay, so that makes up, yes, because we do have 18 games there, and so we are not counting those January 2025 friendlies. Okay, let's go on to talk about formations. So again, we won't go into the weeds too much here, but rather we'll just summarize what they had. The main formation they used was a 4-3-3 formation. They used that in 8 of their 18 games, or 44%. And then they used a 4-5-1 formation in 6 of the 18 games, or 33%. So if you're the astute will notice that that's a 3-man midfield in both of those formations. So they really favor that 3-man midfield. Let's point out a couple of other patterns there. Yeah, so the 3-man midfield in 77% of games, and the 2-man central midfield in 23%. For defense, we have a 2-man central defense in 89% of games, and a 3-man central defense in 11% of games, or just 2 of the 18 games where they used a 3-man defense. 3-man central defense, those were in March of 2024. And single forward, 100% of games. So that means they never used a 2-man forward line during this period. So that's what we're looking at. You're probably best off to think in terms of Burkina Faso in a 4-3-3 formation in your mind during this period. We end with their upcoming games or games after October 2025. So basically, our data goes up until October 2025. Those November friendlies have already been played, but they're not part of our data. In fact, we're saving them for part two. We're going to look at the lineups there to see. To try to help us predict starters. Anyway, and we're not really interested in the scores in these games, more in the lineups. Nevertheless, they played friendly in November of 2025. Both of these were at home, November 14th and 18th. They played Niger and Benin and won both games, 3-2 over Niger, 3-0 over Benin. But as I said, no. What was I saying? As I said, we're looking at the lineups in those games. I guess that's where I was going with that. Sorry for the confusion. We actually did expect teams to maybe schedule some pre-tournament friendlies, but we're pretty close to the Cup now, but they haven't done that. So it looks like it's not going to happen. And this is all we'll have to go on. So there we go. Let's move on to part two, or section two, I should say, because part two is coming a bit later. Will be published separately when we know the rosters. So section two here, we're looking at the candidates. We're looking at the situation over the past 2 years. Basically for each position. So let's start with the manager. And here we have Brahma Traore, who is the current manager. And we have Hubert Valoud, basically the outgoing manager, although he left a little while ago. We're also going to mention the manager before him, Camu Malo. Is in part of the narrative. So those are the two managers previous to Brahma Traore. Let's look at the story over the last little while. Hubert Valoud had been manager from April of 2022. He came in shortly after they had a good result in the 2021 African Cup, finishing fourth there. That cup played in January of 2022. Despite that, the FA decided not to renew the contract of Camu Malo, and Valoud came in to replace him. So Valoud guided them to successful qualification for the 2023 African Cup, where they passed the group stage, but lost to Mali in the round of 16. So not as good as the previous cup under Malo, but even that round of 16, that apparently was not satisfactory for the FA, and he and the team agreed to part in February of 2024. And Brahma Traore came in exactly a month later, and his first two matches were friendlies in March of 2024. So Brahma Traore led them through a successful qualification for this cup, the 2025 African Cup. They finished 6 points behind Senegal in their group in second place, but that was enough to reach the cup. And Traore also guided them through World Cup qualification, completing that. The first two games would have been under Valoud. And that too was a pretty good campaign where they finished 5 points behind Egypt in second place and were just shy of reaching the playoffs. So Burkina Faso, I don't have anything to finish that sentence with, so I'll just move on. Let's take a look at Brahma Traore. He was on the was a player from 1982 to 1993, and he played professionally in Algeria, actually, but he earned no caps for the national team. In terms of being a manager, he was with the Burkina Faso setup, coaching underage teams there. the under-20 and under-23 national team, and even their B team. That will be the team that plays in the African National Championship. As far as clubs goes, he's only coached one club, that's RC Bobo. And he's managed them three separate times. In fact, he was managing them for 3 years before being appointed to the Burkina Faso national team in 2024. So Brahma Traore, not the most experienced manager there, but he will be the one leading them through the cup, or we're fairly sure he will be at this late point. Okay, let's go to the players themselves, and we begin with goalkeepers. What we're going to do here is kind of name the candidates, so give you the cast of characters, as it were, and then we're going to talk about the position, the narrative on the position over the period, and then we'll come back and look at the main players in more detail. So for goalkeepers, we have a definite candidate in Kylian Nikiema, and a likely candidate in Irv Coffey, and three possible candidates. First one, Farid Ouedraogo, and then we have Laj Brahima Sanu, and the third possible candidate is Clovis Bazimo. Two players seemingly off the squad make that three. We have Hilal Konate, Sebas Kula, and Philip Mare. So we'll take a quick look at those players when we get there. So a lot of candidates for goalkeeper here. Let's look at the position over the period. It was Irv Coffey starting all 4 games in the last African Cup, and he held a tenuous grasp on the starting position over the period. He started only about half the games, but that did include 3 of the last 4, which kind of indicates to us that he is still the starting keeper. Farid Ouedraogo started 4 in a row in the fall of 2024, but he was not selected after June 2025. So Kylian Nikiema seems more the backup keeper, also starting 4, but his 4 starts were spread out over the whole period and included the second last game. Newcomers Laj Brahima Sanu and Clovis Bazimo seem under consideration for the third string keeper role there. Okay, let's take a look at the candidates. Kylian Nikiema has been with Burkina Faso since 2019 with 8 caps and no goals, and he's just 22 years old, playing for Den Haag in the Netherlands since 2019, so quite a while with them. He was born in the Netherlands and even played for underage teams for them. His first cup was the 2021 African Cup, and he was selected for that one and the 2023 edition on the roster, on the bench for both of those tournaments. Over the recent period, as we saw in the narrative, Nikiema started 4 of their 18 games, and he was on the bench for 10. So just 3 matches, and those were towards the first half he was not selected for. So we have him as a definite candidate, but don't let that fool you into thinking that he is the starter, because he's probably second string keeper right now. The starter is probably still Irv Coffey. He's been with the team since 2016 with 67 caps and is 29 years old. And he plays for Lens in France and has played in various countries, especially Belgium and even in Portugal. And he was born in Burkina Faso, actually. So his youth clubs were in Burkina Faso. His father actually played in the 2000 African Cup of Nations, Irv Coffey. So Irv Coffey's first tournament was the 2017 African Cup, and he was a starter there. And in the 2021 and 2023 editions, and he started only 9 of their 18 games, so just half of them over this period. He was injured for 2 and actually not selected for 7 matches. That's why we have him as a likely candidate, because he was off the team there for a while. The first of our 3 possible candidates is Farid Ouedraogo, and he's been with Burkina Faso since 2021 with 10 caps and is 29 years old. He plays for probably the biggest team in Sudan, Al Hilal Omdurman, and played for Congo DR's one of their biggest teams too, AS Vita. Otherwise, he was in Burkina Faso before 2022, and he was the backup keeper in the 2021 African Cup, but not selected for the 2023 edition, just on the preliminary squad there. So Farid Ouedraogo returned after a more than 2-year absence in June of 2024, and as we saw in the fall of 2024, started 4 of their games. He was on the bench for 7 others, but then not selected for the last 5 matches. So actually the players, he looked like the 3rd string keeper, at least maybe making a bid for the backup keeper. But now he's off the squad, and the next 2 candidates are kind of the considerations for 3rd string keeper. The first one is Laj Brahima Sanu, brand new to the team since 2025, so actually his name should be in orange there. I'm not going to take the trouble to change it, but it should be because he's new to the squad. He also plays in Sudan for another of their biggest teams, Al Merrikh Omdurman. And played in Burkina Faso before that. So on the preliminary squad for the 2023 African Cup, so not as new as it seems, but he got his first cap in 2025. In fact, he got his first cap in September of 2025. Oh no, his first appearance on the bench in September 2025, and he didn't start any of their remaining 4 games, but was on the bench for 3 of the last 4 and not selected for the last match. And I was a bit confused there. He got his 3 caps for the national team in the African Nations Championship, kind of the B team there. So really, he doesn't have any caps for the senior team. That is Laji Brahima Sanu. The other candidate at a possible level is Clovis Bazimo, and he got his first appearance on the bench in September 2025. Also, he didn't start any of the games, but was on the bench for 2 and then not selected for the last 2. So Bazimo just coming into the picture here. We have 3 candidates seemingly off the squad. I won't talk much about them. Hilal Konate last appeared in January of 2024, actually was selected for the last African Cup, but that was the last time he was called up. Next, Sebas Kula, same situation on the roster for the previous African Cup, but hasn't appeared. No, he did appear after that. He started a game in March of 2024, right after the Cup, but that proved to be his last appearance, even on the bench. And then we have Philip Mare, new to the squad. He got his first appearance on the bench in October 2024. He was on the bench for 2 games and didn't start any, and not selected recently. So Philip Mare, just 22 years old, so perhaps a name for the future. All right, that's our look at goalkeepers. Let's move on to defence and central defence. As we said in section 1, this is 89% of the time a 2-man position, and 11% of the time they use 3. Okay, let's look at the candidates. We have a definite candidate in Edmund Tapsoba and also Isufa Deu. So they're kind of the main guys back there. Also definite, though, is Nasser Jiga. And then we have a likely candidate in Adamo Nagolo. Sorry, that is Adamo Nagalo. Beyond that, though, we just have a possible but unlikely candidate in Ismailo Ganu, I guess, and then seemingly off the squad, Trova Boni. Okay, so that's actually not a lot for central defenders, especially when they use the three-man defense at times. Let's look at the story of the position. So Edwin Tapsoba and Sufu Dayu were the pairing in all 4 games of the last African Cup. And for the most part, they continued as a pairing over the period. And the period actually ends with them kind of reuniting and starting the last 4 games in the fall of 2025 in the fall of 2025. But over the course of the period, both did miss some games. Dio was absent actually for the first 6 games after the Cup, and Nasser Jiga replaced him for 4 of those, and Adamo Nagalo for 3 of them. The two played together when Tapsoba was out for one of the March games. So basically, Jiga and Nagalo each started 6 games over the period, but fundamentally replacing the main candidates, Tapsoba and Dayo. And they were the only players, Jiga and Nagalo, to come in to cover the position. So that's why they have so few candidates here. Let's take a look at those candidates. Edmund Tapsoba has been with Burkina Faso since 2016. He has 57 caps and 3 goals and is still only 26 years old. He has one of the biggest club affiliations with Bayer Leverkusen in Germany. He's been with them since 2020, and his first tournament was the 2021 African Cup. And actually had coronavirus in the first game of that, but became a starter when he recovered, and was a starter, as we saw in the 2023 African Cup. In fact, Tapsoba started 14 of their 18 games over this period. He was on the bench and then was injured for the 3 others, 2 separate injuries, actually. That's Edmund Tapsoba. The second of our definite candidate is Isufu Dayo, and he has been with Burkina Faso even longer, since 2013, with 87 caps and 9 goals. He's 5 years older than Tapso. No, how much older? It doesn't matter. He's 8 years older than Tapsoba, 34 years old. He plays for Salal in Qatar since 2025. That's a recent move. He was with Renaissance Berkane in Morocco for 9 years before that. Isufu Dayo's first tournament was the 2017 African Cup, and he's been part of all of their cups. They didn't qualify in 2019, so 2021 and 2023 they did, and he was a starter in both of those. But he was actually off the team for a little while. He returned after a 10-month absence in October of 2024, and then started 10 of their remaining 12 games, not selected for the 2 others. So we did point that out, that after the last African Cup, he was gone until the fall of 2024. Isufu Dayo. Now, the third definite candidate is not so much a starter. It's Nasser Jiga, and he has been with the team since 2022 with 12 caps and 1 goal. He is just 23 years old and is on the roster of Wolverhampton in England. A recent move since 2025. He was immediately loaned out to Rangers in Scotland, though, so that's where he's actually playing. Prior to that, he was with Red Star Belgrade in Serbia and Basel in Switzerland there. So pretty good club affiliations for Nasser Jiga, but in the Cup he was selected, but only appeared briefly in Game 2, when he was subbed in at 84. So a little tough for him to get onto the field ahead of Dayo and Tapsoba. But he did, as we saw, start 6 of their 18 games over the period, and he was subbed in for 2. And he was on the bench for all 10 others, which is why we have him as a definite candidate for making this squad. The likely candidate is Adamo Nagalo. He's been with Burkina Faso also since 2022 and has 19 caps and no goals. And like Giga, he's 23 years old. It's kind of the next generation for them here. He plays for PSV Eindhoven in the Netherlands since 2024. So that was a move up from Nordjylland in Denmark, who he was with for 4 years before that. Nagalo was born in the Ivory Coast, and the 2023 African Cup was his first tournament. And he started game two, so he must have started out of position there, or perhaps they used a three-man defense, and subbed into game four at halftime. So he got more field time than Giga did there. And he also started 6 of their 18 games over the period, subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 6, but he was injured for 2 and not selected for 3. So a little less consistently called up than Giga. So we have Adamo Nagalo at the likely level. Next, we have Ismailo Ganiu, and he didn't start any games over the period. He was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1, and then not selected for the last 4 matches. So kind of came in and out quickly. He's just 20 years old, Ganiu, so perhaps we'll see his name down the road. Next, the seemingly off the squad candidate is Trova Boni, and he last appeared in November of 2024. Okay, we go to left backs, and we begin with Steve Yago. Well, we're never sure what to code him because he kind of changes for large swaths of his career. He was a left back for a long time and a central defender for a while, and now is a right back. So some sources are also confused as to what to code him. We're going to stick with central defender for now, but in this period, Steve Yago played as a right back, and he is, sorry, I put him in the definite box, but he is a likely candidate, Steve Yago. And then we have 2 possible candidates, Mohamed Ouedraogo and Abdul Ayinde. Both of those newcomers to the squad, and that's what the orange script indicates in their name. Then we have another newcomer, but he's possible but unlikely, Arsene Kouassi. And a couple of players seemingly off the squad, Valentin Numa and Abdul Guibre. Okay, let's take a look at the left back position over the period. So in the Cup, Steve Yago started 3 of the 4 games there. Abdul Guibre started game 3, but he was not called up after the Cup. From March 2024, Steve Yago shared the position with Mohamed Ouedraogo. But after October, Ouedraogo drifted off the team. However, he did return to start the last game. Yago continued into 2025, but only started 4 of the 8 games, and in fact 2 of those were on the left side. So the main replacement was newcomer Abdul Ayinde. And then all 3 of them, Yago, Ouedraogo, and Ayinde, started over the last 4 games. So the starting position seems a bit under contention there among our candidates here. Let's look at them in more detail. Steve Yago, a veteran for the team, has been with Burkina Faso since 2013 with 91 caps and 1 goal, and he's 33 years old. Still playing for Aris Limassol in Cyprus since 2021. Steve Yago was born in France. And his first tournament was the 2015 African Cup there. And for the most part, he's been a starter in all of the Cups up to the 2023 African Cup. We saw he started 3 of the 4 games in the most recent one there in January of 2024. Over the recent period, Yago has, and I should tell you, his name is spelled Yago, for those of you who are trying to figure it out from the pronunciation. It's a little difficult. Yago started 10 of their 18 games from the over the course of this period. He was on the bench for 2 and not selected for 6 others. That includes 4 of the last 6 matches, so a bit surprising there. We don't think it means an awful lot, but we did move him down to likely because of that. So Steve Yago, a likely candidate. Next we have at a possible level, Mohamed Ouedraogo, and he's been with Burkina Faso since 2024 with 8 caps, and he's 22 years old and plays for Rheindorf Altach in Austria since 2023 there. And was in Burkina Faso before that. Ouedraogo got his first appearance on the bench in March of 2024 and started 6 of their remaining games, as well as subbing in for 2. And he was on the bench for 4, but not selected for 6 matches. So Ouedraogo, a possible candidate here. Also possible is Abdoul Aïndé, and he's been with Burkina Faso since June of 2025 with 3 caps. He is just 20 years old, and Aïndé plays for Ghent in Belgium since 2024. And got his first appearance, as we said, in June of 2025. He started 3 of the remaining 6 games there, and he was on the bench for the other 3, including the last match. So we should actually move him above Ouedraogo. He seems a bit more likely than him. Let's go to our possible but unlikely candidate. That's Arsene Kouassi, and he did not appear for the last 5 matches. Did start 1 game over the period, but basically came in, played that game, and then disappeared. Arsene Kouassi, just 21 years old, so may come into play in the future. The first of the 2 seemingly off the squad candidates, Valentin Nouma, last appeared in November of 2024. He was on the roster, on the bench for the last African Cup, and so was Abdoul Guibre there, and I believe he last appeared in the African Cup. To be honest, I don't have a note on that, so I'll have to correct that. Okay, that is it for left backs. Let's move on to right backs here. And we have a definite candidate in Issa Kabore, one of my favorite players there. And we have another player, Saido Simpore, but we've actually moved him to defensive midfield because that's where he played during this period. But he is coded as a right back, at least on some of the sources that I use. So that's all we have over here is Issa Kabore. Let's look at the position and see what happened. Kabore did start all 4 games in the Cup. But in game 3, he started as a right attacking midfielder. So actually, it was central defender Adamo Nagalo playing as a right back in that game. Yes, that's caused a bit of confusion there among central defenders. Okay, Kabore was absent for the next 4 games after the Cup, and in those games was replaced by left back Steve Yago. 2 left backs, Steve Yago and Mohamed Ouedraogo. Steve Yago replaced Kabore for 2 games in 2025 as well, and that includes the last game. But we have Issa Kabore as a definite candidate nevertheless. Really, it is his position quite firmly. Let's take a look at Issa Kabore. He's with Burkina Faso since 2019 with 52 caps and 2 goals, and he's just 24 years old. He's on the roster of Manchester City since 2000, and But he's mostly been loaned out to teams. Currently, he's with Wrexham, the team they're making that great documentary on. So they're lucky to get him, I think. Prior to that, with Werder Bremen and Benfica, and then Luton in England. So he's really played for some big clubs, Marseille included. But I don't think he's played any games for Manchester City yet. So Issa Kabore, a very experienced player. He was his first tournament was the 2021 African Cup, and in that and the 2023 version, a starter in both of those. However, he was off the team for a while after that African Cup and returned after 9 months in September 2024 and went on to start 12 of their remaining 14 games, not selected for 2 others, including the last match. But that doesn't worry us. It would be madness for them to not select Issa Kabore, and that's why we have him as a definite candidate. Okay, that is it for right backs and for defence in general. We move upfield up to the midfield and the defensive end of the midfield. So I'll just say, in terms of the position itself, we saw in Section 1 that Burkina Faso has preferred a 3-man midfield, which they've used in about 3/4 of their games, or 77% of their games. Let's populate the list with defensive midfielders. We're going to do all the midfield in one go here because it's a bit confusing with 3 midfielders in most of the games and sometimes attacking midfielders coming into play. Or in fact, our first candidate is right back Seydou Simpore, or that is where he is what I have him coded as. Another website has him as a central defender. Anyway, Seydou Simpore has been playing in the defensive midfield or in the midfield during this period, and he's a definite candidate. We also have Mohamed Zougrana. He's an injury concern, which we'll talk about. He's at the likely level, and Ismaila Ouedraogo at the possible level. He is the first of he's the only candidate there. Possible but unlikely, Dramine Salou, and seemingly off the squad, Sasha Banse. Sasha Banse. Let's take a look at central midfielders as well. None at the definite level there, but at the likely level we have Blati Touré, or sometimes called Ibrahim Touré. I'm going to call him Blati Touré because that's what I heard him being called in the cup. At the possible level, we have Abdul Yoda, and at the seemingly off the squad level, Adama Guira. There, as I said, we do have some attacking midfielders coming back into the midfield, but we will talk about them when we get to attacking midfielders. Let's deal with this cast right now. So, as I say, a bit confusing. I've tried to make it comprehensible here. Blati Touré and Adama Guira were the starting pair in the 2023 African Cup there, at least for games 1 and 2. Game 2 actually proved Guira's last game for the national team. The 37-year-old is now retired from the game altogether. In game 3, those two were replaced by Ismaila Ouedraogo and attacking midfielder Gustavo Sangar there in game 3. Blati Touré had actually played as a starter in game 3, but as a right attacking midfielder. He returned to the central midfield in game 4 to make it a 3-man midfield. So Gustavo Sangar, Blati Touré, and Ismaila Ouedraogo there in the last game. But things changed quite a bit over the period. Gustavo Sangaro was only Sangaro was a starter only until June of 2024. He's off the team now. Ismaila Ouedraogo played very little after the Cup, but did return at the end to start the last 2 games. And Blati Toure was similar. He was kind of in and out over the period, but also returned at the end of the period to start 2 of the last 4 games in the fall of 2025. So those characters kind of remain in our thoughts. Beyond that, though, several new players came in. We see right back Seydou Simpore became a defensive midfielder and started half of the games over the period. And he too features at the end. We'll take a look at how things look at the end of the period here. In the middle, though, attacking midfielders, Cedric Badolo, Josue Triendra Biogo, and Stephen Aziz Key all took on fairly big roles in the middle of the period, but were not used much towards the end. And then in 2025, in March, Mohamed Zougrana came into the squad, and he also features in the last, the fall 2025 games. So let's breeze by the details and go to the fall of 2025, the end of the period. The main candidates seem to be Blati Toure and Mohamed Zougrana. They both started 3 of the last 4 games. And then Seydou Simpor and Ismail Ouedraogo both started 2 of the last 4 games. Actually, Simpore starting both September games and Ouedraogo starting both October games there. So that is a summary of the midfield. Tried to avoid too much detail there. And let's look at the candidates in more detail. So Seydou Simpor, we'll have to reevaluate his position perhaps after the Cup here. He's been with Burkina Faso since 2013 with 27 caps and 1 goal and is 33 years old. Currently playing for National Bank in Egypt. Actually, he's been with several clubs, 4 clubs in Egypt since moving from Burkina Faso in 2016. Simpor has been was a selection for the African Cup in 2021. However, he didn't appear after the 2021 African Cup, so was not really even a consideration for the 2023 African Cup. He didn't make even the 54-man preliminary squad there, but he returned after a more than 2-year absence in June of 2024 and started 9 of their remaining 16 games, as well as subbing in for 5, and was on the bench for the 2 others. So called up consistently since June 2024, and we have Simpore or Simpore, I think it's pronounced, as a definite candidate here. Next, we have newcomer Mohamed Zougrani. Since 2025, he came in March of 2025 and has 5 caps and 2 goals. He's 24 years old. Actually has played 3 caps for Ivory Coast in 2023. He was born there, but also eligible for Burkina Faso, who he ultimately threw his lot in with. And he plays for MC Alger in Algeria since 2023, and started 5 of their 18 games over the period. He was on the bench for 1, but injured for the last 2, and he was also suspended for the June games for some reason. Mohamed Zougrani is out with a knee injury, or was out with a knee injury since late October. That is why, that must be late September. Anyway, absent or injured for the October game. So nevertheless, he returned to action in early December. So he seems okay now, and he is over that injury. Let's go to our possible defensive midfielder, Ismaila Ouedraogo. He's been with Burkina Faso since 2019 with 27 caps and no goals. He's 34 years old and recently moved to Odense in Denmark in 2025, and was playing for clubs in Greece before that, ever since 2021. That's when he moved from Burkina Faso to play in Europe. Ouedraogo was part of the African Cup squad in 2021. He only started kind of that B team game there and in 2023, he was also a substitute, came in to game 2 at 39. He must have replaced an injured player there and gained a starting position for games 3 and 4. Over the period, he started 2 games, just the last 2 games. Yes, he was off the squad for a while for most of 2025. Started 2 of their 18 games, on the bench for 3, but not selected for 13 matches over the period. So not just 2025, as we said in the narrative, kind of off the team after the Cup and then came back towards the end. Next, we have possible but unlikely candidate Dramine Salou. We won't go into much detail on him. He didn't start any games. He was subbed in for 3 and not selected for the last 6 matches, Dramine Salou. And then our seemingly off the squad player is Sacha Banz. And he actually was part of the squad for the 2023 African Cup, but last appeared in November of 2024. So Sacha Banze seemingly off the squad. The central midfielders now, and we begin with Blati Toure. He's been with Burkina Faso since 2017 and has 59 caps and 3 goals. He's 31 years old now. Still playing for Pyramids in Egypt since 2022, but he has played for teams in Sweden, Portugal, and Spain. He too was born in the Ivory Coast, and his first tournament was the 2017 African Cup. He's been part of every cup since in 2021 and 2023, and over the period started 7 of their 18 games despite being a starter in the cup. I'm just. He got 2. He got 2 yellow cards, so he was actually ineligible for game 3 there in the cup. And he started 7 of their games over the period, which is not that many. He subbed in for 4 and on the bench for 3. Just 4 matches that he wasn't selected for, but not the starter that he had been prior to this period. So Blati Toure, just a likely candidate here. Next, we have at the possible level Abdul Yoda. He is new to the team, so his name should actually be in orange. Since 2025, he has 2 caps and is 25 years old. And he plays for a team I've actually not heard of. It's Milsami in Moldova since 2025. And he was with smaller teams in Denmark and Austria prior to that. Maybe the reason his name is in grey is because he was on the preliminary squad for the 2023 African Cup. So he was in our files, but didn't make the cut for that tournament. He had been on the bench back in 2022, Abdul Yoda, but returned after a 3-year absence in June of 2025 to start. Didn't start any of the games, but finally got a cap when he was subbed in. He was subbed in for 2 games actually, and on the bench for 4 others. So after his return in June 2025, he's been called up consistently. We're putting Abdul Yoda as a possible candidate here. And finally, we have Adam Guira, and he has been with Burkina Faso since 2010, and we have an end date on his time with the national team, so 2010 to 2024, with 53 caps. But at 37 years old, he is retired from football altogether. So we bid farewell to him. He was part of the national team, the African Cup tournaments from 2015 onwards. So he participated in 4 tournaments as a starter in the last 2. And yes, he was the player who was injured in game 2. That injury ended his tournament and apparently his career, because that was his final performance there. Okay, so Adam Guerra off the team now, and that is the candidates that we have looked at in the central midfield. Let's go on upfield because we have no candidates. Wait, we have one candidate coded as a left midfielder. I'll dispense with him quickly here because he's just at the seemingly off the squad level. It's Mamadi Banger or Bangre, and he actually started game one of the 2023 African Cup, for which he was selected, but lost his starting position and has not appeared since. So he's just 24 years old, so may come back into the picture, but did not get selected during this period. Mamadi Bangre, he's the only one coded as a right or left midfielder, despite the fact that they use a 4-3-3 formation. It is defensive and central midfielders, and as we'll see, attacking midfielders in those positions. So we move upfield then to the attacking end of the midfield, and we begin with the left side attackers. And let's take a look at the candidates here. We have a likely candidate in Pierre Landry Cabore, but again, don't let that deceive you into thinking that he's a starter. He has only started one game. Starting far more games is Hassan Bande, but he's just at the possible level because he didn't appear much at the end. And the other possible candidate here is Usaini Buda. So those are the three candidates over here. Let's take a look at the position. So in a 4-3-3 formation, that's going to be a left forward. So we do consider 4-3-3 a single forward flanked by left and right midfielder. In the cup, it was attacking midfielder Cedric Badolo and right attacking midfield Abdul Tapsoba sharing the position. Each of those started 2 games. But however, neither of those 2 players appeared in the position after, but it was several other players who came in and out of the position. The main ones were Usaini Buda at the beginning of the period, Hassan Bandi in the middle, and the most used player at the end was Syriac Iri there. And then several players came in for brief appearances. Right attacking midfielder Dango Wataro popped up throughout the period, but played other positions equally as much. So we'll talk about him when we get to the right side of the midfield. Okay, so as I said, Pierre Landry Cabore didn't get many starts. He was just one of the players who made a single appearance. And Cabore is new to the team since 2025, but he has 5 caps and 3 goals. I'm guessing that some of those were in the African Nations Cup there. He's 24 years old, Pierre Landry Cabore, and got his first cap in June of 2025. He started 1 game and subbed in for 4. So actually those 5 caps are with the senior team. And he was on the bench for 1 other. He scored 3 goals. He scored a hat-trick against Ethiopia in their last qualifying game there. So I wonder if that'll get him more starts with the team. So Pierre Landry Cabore, kind of an interesting candidate here. At the possible level, the first candidate is Hassan Bande, and he's been with the team since 2015 with 39 caps and 3 goals. He's 27 years old and plays for Mechelen in Belgium since 2025. He was with HKJ Helsinki, probably the biggest team in Finland there for a couple of years before that, but has otherwise played in all sorts of countries, France, Netherlands, and Croatia. The only team he played for in Burkina Faso was a youth club. Hassan Bandi was part of the African Cup in 2021, just a substitute there and in the 2023 African Cup. Over the recent period, he started almost half of their games, though, 8 of their 18 games, as well as subbing in for 3. However, he was not selected for 7 matches, and that includes the last 5. So, as we said in the narrative, kind of um, big in the position in the middle of the period, but then not at the end. Husseini Buda is our other possible candidate, and he played the position more at the beginning of the period. Buda has been with Burkina Faso since 2022 and has 11 caps and 2 goals, and is 25 years old. One of those 2 goals was a late tying goal against Senegal in their opening game of 2025 African Cup qualifying. Husseini Buda is still playing in the USA. He's been with San Jose Earthquakes since 2022. And was not selected for the African Cup last time out. He was just on the preliminary squad there. Over this period, Buda has started 4 of their 18 games, as well as subbing in for 5 and on the bench for 4. So just 4 matches that he was not selected for. He was injured for 1. So Husseini Buda, a possible candidate here. And that's all we have on the list on the left side, but we are going to meet Dango Ouattara, who does sometimes appear over here as well. In fact, he's our first candidate on the right attacking midfield here, and he is at the definite level, Dango Ouattara. We have another definite candidate in Bertrand Traore over here. So that is 2 big names on the right side, but actually both of them do play in other positions. The possible candidate is Cyriac Iri, and he is a concern, fitness concern. I'll tell you about it a bit later. Also at the possible level is Georgie Minungu. Sorry, I didn't have him highlighted, so I wasn't sure what level he was at. Okay, we have a possible but unlikely candidate in Ousmane Camara, and then seemingly off the squad, Abdul Tapsoba. Okay, let's look at the position over the period. 3 different players held the position in the African Cup there. Bertrand Traore, though, started the last 2 games. However, he was off the squad for most of 2024. He only started once there, and I think he subbed in a couple of times, but mostly off the squad. So it was Dango Ouattara holding the position through the March and June 2024 games. He started the first of the fall 2024 games too, but he was the first of 6 different players in the position over the 6 African Cup qualifying games there. So very undecided at that point. But Dango Ouattara did return to the position in 2025, except for the June games. That's where Cyriac Iri started both of those. And for the last game where Bertrand Traore came back to start, which kind of brings us full circle because we basically started with him in the Cup. Okay, let's take a look at the players. Dango Ouattara has been with the team since 2021. He has 34 caps and 12 goals, still only 23 years old, and recently moved to Brentford in England in 2025 from Bournemouth, where he was before that. He played for Lorient in France and was in Burkina Faso until 2020. So Ouattara was selected for the 2021 African Cup. He made a good impression on me there and was in the recent African Cup. I was a bit surprised that he was on the bench for the first 2 games, but he did get a starting position for the last 2 games in the Cup. He started 12 of their 18 games over this period, Dango Ouattara, subbed in for one and out with two separate injuries for three matches and not called up for two of them. But we have him as a definite candidate here. It would be a surprise if they didn't select him. And as I said, he starts in other positions, as does Bertrand Traore, who is our second character or our second candidate on the list here. He has been with Burkina Faso since 2011 with 87 caps and 22 goals. Still fairly young at 30 years old, given his extensive career. He's back in England, actually. He's on the roster of Sunderland, who was promoted this year since 2025. In between his time with Aston Villa and Sunderland, he was with Ajax in Netherlands for a year and Villarreal also. And in the past, he played for Chelsea, or he was at least on Chelsea's roster there. In terms of tournaments, he was first appeared in the 2012 African Cup there. He wasn't actually selected for the 2013 edition, but has been called up for all editions since then. So, yes, a very experienced player and seems to be more older than he is. He's captain of the team in the 2021 and 2023 African Cups, but he was off for a while after the Cup. He returned after a 9-month absence in October of 2024, Bertrand Traore, and started 6, including the last 3 of their remaining 12 games. And he subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 3. The only 2 matches he was gone for was when he was injured for 2 matches. That's after his return in October 2024. So Bertrand Traore, a definite candidate here. At the possible level, we have 2 candidates. The first is Cyriac Iri. I'll just tell you now, because his name came up on the left side too. He joined the team in 2025 in June. He started 2 games as a right attacking midfielder, then 2 games on the left in September, but in October was out with sickness. He was out with malaria. But he does seem to have recovered from that, Cyriac Iri. Now, I got ahead of myself a little bit in talking about him, but if you're calculating, you'll see he's got 4 caps for the national team and 2 goals in those games. And he currently plays for Freiburg in Germany since 2025, having moved from Troyes in France, where he played for a year before that. So Cyriac Iri, the first of the possible candidates. The second one is Georgie Minungu. He's also new to Burkina Faso, which is why his name is in orange. Since 2025, he has 4 caps and no goals and is 23 years old. Minungu plays for Seattle Sounders in the USA there since 2024, and he was born in the Ivory Coast. Minungu got his first cap in September of 2025. He didn't start any of the games, but he was subbed in for all 4 matches. So Georgie Minungu, a possible candidate to make the final squad. Next, we have Ousmane Camara, and he's been with the team since 2024 with 5 caps. He is just 19 years old, and he plays for a team in Latvia called Riga since 2024. And that was his first team after moving from Burkina Faso. He got his first cap in September of 2024, actually a bit of an odd path for him. He started one of their 4 games and was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1. And then he was abruptly dropped off the team. So didn't last into 2025. and Ousmane Kamara. But of course, he is young enough that we might see him down the road. But a bit of an odd uh, path, playing in November 2024 and then leaving the team abruptly. Next, we have seemingly off the squad Abdul Tapsoba. He has a pretty long resume, even though he was just with the team since 2021. He was selected for the last two African Cups, but did not appear after the January 2024, did not appear after the African Cup there. Last time around. So Abdul Tapsoba, he's only 24 years old, so I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him coming back into the team, but not in the team this period there. And we move on to central attackers here. Central attackers, we have two definite candidates, even though they don't use the position that much. The first of the definite candidate is Cedric Badolo. And then we have, Josue Chiendra Biogo, also definite. At the possible level, we have Stéphane Aziz Ki, and then one at the possible but unlikely level, Raouf Memel Dao. And at the possible or at the seemingly off the squad level, Gustavo Sangare. Okay, and let's go back and look at the position and how it played out over the period. The position actually was used in the last African Cup. It was used in the first three games of the Cup, and it was Stéphane Aziz Ki filling it twice and Gustavo Sangare once. The position, though, was only used twice over the period after the Cup, and Cedric Badolo and Josue Chiendra Biogo manned the post the two times it was used. Otherwise, these players we're looking at, you might wonder, well, then why are they definite candidates? It's because they were used as central midfielders, and they featured mostly in the middle of the period. So you'll get an idea when we talk about the players' recent participation at the end of their career biography section, which we move into here, and beginning by taking a look at Cedric Badolo. He's been with Burkina Faso since 2022, and he has 31 caps and no goals, and is 27 years old. He plays in Slovakia, having played in Moldova before that. He played for a bigger team in Moldova that I am familiar with. It's Sheriff Tiraspol. And has been with teams in Morocco, but also in Burkina Faso as well. Cedric Badolo started 8 of their 18 games over the period, as well as subbing in for 5, and he was on the bench for the 5 others. So he's always called up, and that's why we have him as a definite candidate. The next one is Josue Chiendra Biogo, and he has been with Burkina Faso since 2022 with 12 caps and no goals. He's 23 years old and plays for Annecy in France since 2024. That's when he moved from Burkina Faso. Chiendra Biogo has, he got his first cap in November of 2024 and started 5 of their remaining 10 games. And was subbed in for the 5 others. So, yes, he had come in November 2024 and started regularly up until the first game in September 2025, but just a substitute after that. And I didn't say for Badolo, but he, as we know, started quite a bit in the central midfield. However, he was on the bench for the last 4 games, Badolo. Our possible candidate is Stéphane Aziz Ki, And he has been with Burkina Faso since 2017 with 20 caps and 3 goals. He's 29 years old, and he's born in Ivory Coast as well and plays in Casablanca. Actually, an interesting resume here with teams in Morocco, Tanzania. He played for Young Africans, which is one of Tanzania's bigger teams there. And Aziz Ki was selected for the 2023 African Cup. I'm just trying to remember a story about him, but I'm not sure if it's him, so I'll skip it. Aziz Ki started 5 of their 18 games over this period and was on the bench for 6, but there were 7 matches that he was not selected for. So Aziz Ki, a possible candidate. Possible but unlikely candidate, Raouf Memel, and he first appeared in March of 2025, even started a game then, but yes, 1 start, 2 bench appearances, and not selected for the last 5 matches. So Raoul Memel, close to being off the squad. Finally, we have at the seemingly off the squad level, Gustavo Sangare. He was selected for the last 2 African Cups, but was last appeared on the bench in September of 2024. So we won't go into detail on him beyond that. And that brings us to the end of the attacking midfield. And all we have left to look at is the forwards. So let's move on to that. And as we said in section 1, this position is a single forward in 100% of their games over the period. Okay, well, the first candidate on our list is at the definite level. It's Mohamed Konate. And then we have also at the definite level, Lassina Frank Traore, although he is an injury concern. The poor guy has been plagued with injuries over the last 4 years there. And that's all. We have those 2 definite candidates, and then we go down to the seemingly off the squad level, where we have Abdul Kader Ouattara and also Jibril Ouattara. Both of those seemingly off the squad. So not many candidates to look at here, although we do have out of position players coming in. Sometimes let's look at the position over the course of the period, beginning with the African Cup in 2024 January. Mohamed Konate started 3 games of the Cup. Dango Ouattara starting 1 of those games. He started game 3. Lassina Frank Traore had been out with a long-term injury. He had been not selected for the Cup, but he stormed into the starting spot on his return in March of 2024. He started 10 of the next 12 games. However, in June 2025, he was out as abruptly as he had come in. Actually, it was an injury at this point. He was not selected for the 2 June games, but by the time September came around, he was suffering with his 3rd long-term injury in the course of the last 4 years. So Mohamed Konate replaced him. He had missed 2 games in the fall of 2024. Mohamed Konate replaced him there. But by the time of June 2025, it was both Mohamed Konate and Bertrand Traore sharing the honours, sharing them equally over the last 6 games, actually, each of them playing 3. So we have looked at Bertrand Traore. Let's look at Mohamed Konate here. And he's been with Burkina Faso since 2020 with 39 caps and 7 goals. And he is 28 years old. And he plays for Akhmat Grozny in Russia, actually his second stint with them since 2025. In between, he played for Al Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, but he's played for several teams in Russia since 2018 and played in Belarus and Kazakhstan, Latvia as well. So a very interesting club career for Mohamed Konate. He was born in the Ivory Coast, and the 2021 African Cup was his first tournament. He was subbed into 4 games there. But as we saw, he was a starter in the 2023 African Cup, at least for 3 of the 4 games. Over the period, Konate started 6 of their 18 games, as well as subbing in for 7 matches. However, there were 5 matches he was not selected for. Those must have been earlier in the period, because we do have him as a definite candidate here. Also definite would be Lassina Frank Traore. He's been with Burkina Faso since 2017 with 30 caps and 14 goals, and he's still only 24 years old. He plays in Eastern Europe as well for Shakhtar Donetsk since 2021, and also played for Ajax in the Netherlands. He has not been part of any tournaments because in 2021, I thought he was injured, but it doesn't seem that way. It looks like he not only was on the preliminary squad, but selected for the oh yes, it was a 29-man preliminary squad, and they were allowed to bring 28 players. He was the only one who was cut, and injury prevented him from participating in the 2023 African Cup, and might here, we'll take a look at that in a second as well. But when he is available, he's as we saw, a definite starter. He scored 2 of their 7 goals in qualifying for this tournament, and 5 of their 23 goals in World Cup 2026 qualifying. Top scorer for his team there. And over this period, Lassina Frank Traore started 10 of their 18 games and was subbed in for 2, but he was injured, as we saw, for the last 4 matches. There. So let's talk about that injury. Had been out with a hamstring injury since early August, so was gone for the whole of the springtime. He has recovered from that, but is still building fitness as of early November. So it seems like he'll be back in time. In fact, he was on the bench for his club just very recently, and just on December 14th. So went from being on the bench. Went from being kind of in recovery to appearing on the bench. So I hope Lassina Frank Traore does make it to this tournament. 2 players seemingly off the squad. Abdulkader Ouattara last appeared for the team in October of 2024. He was just on the preliminary squad for the African Cup in 2023, and has no tournament experience. However, Jibril Ouattara, the other seemingly off the squad player, does. He was part of the last 2 African Cups just as a substitute, really. Jibril Ouattara, though, last appeared in that 2023 African Cup. That would be in January of 2024. All right, that brings us to the end of our look at the players and of section 2, and so we move on into section 3 here, and we want to welcome new listeners to section 3 here, because we are releasing this as a short version of part 1 of Burkina Faso's players. So in the full version, we introduced the candidates and their likelihood of making the squad. We gave our reasons for thinking so. It was based mostly on their recent participation, and gave some career information on the main players there. Here we're just kind of reviewing the list that we created in part 2, and we're not concerning ourselves with predicting starters at this point. We're just predicting the likelihood of players to be named to the squad. So let's begin with the manager. Brahma Traore took over at the beginning of 2024 there, February 2024, from Hubert Velud. And he will likely be leading them through this tournament. Just because of his lack of experience, we think we wouldn't be shocked if they got a new manager, but it seems too late to do that at this point. Goalkeepers, we have a definite candidate in Kylian Nikiema and a likely candidate in Irv Coffey, and 3 possible candidates, Farid Ouedraogo, Laji Brahima Sanu, and Clovis Bazimo. And we won't talk about players below that level unless there's reason to. For defenders, and we look at central defence, not a lot of candidates for a position where they usually bring 5 or 6, but they've been relying on 4 players quite heavily here. Edmund Tapsoba and Isufu Deu, both at the definite level, and they're the kind of the starters. And we also have backup defender Nasser Jiga. So all 3 of those definite candidates. The other backup is a likely candidate, Adamo Nagalo. There we go. I got it. That is it. Over to left backs. We have no definite candidate, but a likely candidate in Steve Yago. At least during this period, he's been playing on the left. And we have 2 possible candidates, Abdul Ayinde and Mohamed Ouedraogo there. On the right side, a very strong candidate, just 1 candidate actually, Issa Kabore. When he's not available, it's out of position players coming in to back him up. But he is a definite candidate. And that's it for defence. On to defensive midfield. We have definite candidates in Seydou Simpore. Actually, he's coded as a right back and could be a backup for that position too. During this period, though, he's been playing as a defensive midfielder. We also have a likely candidate in newcomer Mohamed Zugrana, and then a possible candidate in Ismaila Ouedraogo. But the central midfield is really just a clump of players that includes defensive and central midfielders, also includes attacking midfielders too. So let's look at the central midfielders. No candidates at the definite level here, but we have Blati Touré at the likely level and Abdul Yoda at the possible level. And as I said, we're kind of adding candidates when we get to attacking midfielders shortly. Moving on upfield to the attacking end, we begin on the left side. We have no candidate at the definite level, but at the likely level, Pierre Landry Kabore, recently making a bit of a splash in October there. And 2 possible candidates, Hassan Bande and Usaini Bouda. On the right side, we have a lot of talent, 2 definite candidates, Dango Ouattara and Bertrand Traore. No candidates at the likely level, but 2 possible candidates in Syriac Iri and George Minungu. Now we get to the central attackers who are playing mostly in central midfield over this period. That's a definite candidate Cedric Badolo, and also definite Josue Tiendre Briogo. No candidates at the likely level, but at the possible level, we also have Stéphane Aziz Ki. And finally, we look at the forwards. We have 2 definite candidates here, Mohamed Kanate and Lassana Frank Traore. And that's it. We don't have any at the likely or possible level. So they're reliant on those players. But sometimes we do see some of the, especially right attacking midfielders come in to play the position, especially Bertrand Traore recently. All right, that's our review of the candidates. Let's move on to big names who are off the squad. We don't have any really big names. Probably the biggest is Adama Guira. Adama Guira is part of the last 2 African Cups. He has 53 caps for the national team since 2010. He was part of the last 4 African Cups. Since 2015, they weren't part of the 2019 African Cup, and he got injured in the last African Cup there in 2023. I don't know if that had anything to do with his retirement, but that was his last appearance for the national team, and he retired from soccer altogether in 2024 there. So Adama Guira, the only really big name off the squad during this period. Let's take a look at a couple of injuries to tell you about. The first one is defensive midfielder Mohamed Zougrana, and he is a likely candidate. Out with a knee injury since late October, so he missed the October games. That's why he was on our list, but he actually did return to action in early December. So we will put Mohamed Zougrana as recovered from injured. Probably not the case. Oh, no, it may be the same case for Lassana Frank Traore. He is a forward and a definite candidate if he's available. Quite injury prone. The poor guy has suffered 3 long-term injuries over the past 4 years, most recently a hamstring injury since early August. However, he recovered from it and is building fitness as of November. And in December, on December 14th, he was on the bench for his club. So that's a bit of a close call. He may not have the fitness to, especially to be a starter in the cup, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is called up, and seems pretty close to recovery. Again, probably more of a fitness concern. But he has been kind of building his fitness all through November, so he may come back in good condition. Let's move on to... I'm going to skip closing thoughts because I don't have anything particular to say, so we'll preview part 2 here. So in part 2, we're going to put that out when we know the final selections and who was on the preliminary squad. So we'll focus on any notable non-selections, any surprise inclusions, and there's always a couple of new players to introduce. We'll give an update on injuries, any new injuries, or if we know anything more about Traore there. And finally, one of the things we do in part 2 is the Spotlight Review. That is our prediction of starters in the Cup. So we hope you will join us for that. And that brings us to the end of part 1. See you soon. We would like to thank Pixabay and Cold Fingers for the wonderful music used in this mediacast. The title of the piece is Eid Mubarak.